Hello, it's Matt Kendall here today, and I'm joined by Christine Blunt, who did my IEMT certification course a couple of years ago. She also did a refresher course, and I think you're going to come back and do another refresher course in future as well. Now, you've got a very strong background in psychology, so please just tell people what is your background in psychology and mental health?
Hi Matt. I did a psychology degree, and before that I managed people in the NHS for a long time, so I have a bit of experience, I suppose. And then I went off and did a master's in health psychology, which was what interested me was the connection between all types of health. So, then I went off and did a research degree, where I worked more with looking at people with cancers at the time, and chest problems. So, but the thing that interested me on top of that was how I could use different therapies, because that's another spoke to the wheel I have, I suppose, to help people with adjusting to illness, etc., etc. So that's where I started off, and I have lots of colleagues that use rational emotive CBT and use different talking therapies. But this caught my eye as something that was very concise, very quick, produced results, and it sort of appealed to the logical side of me, I suppose. Because as far as I'm concerned, to be a good therapist means assessing what people need, not just putting on them what you do, but what they need. So I sort of take the sort of track of horses for courses. So when I have seen people, I can take different skill sets and use some CBT, some more in-depth therapy if that's needed. But this to me was a very good, sharp, get in there, let's sort things out sort of thing to use.
Absolutely. And I think IEMT is exactly that. It's a great tool. It's a great approach to use. And I teach a lot of therapists, a lot of counsellors, a lot of coaches. So I think IEMT is great as a standalone, but when you combine it with something else, that's where you get really the full effect from it. So you did the weekend. Did you know much about IEMT or EMDR or any of the eye movement therapies before coming on the weekend at all?
I knew a little, not too much. I mean, using the sort of eye movement to desensitize, something I've come across before. I'd looked at some of the courses, some of them are very long-winded, take a while, and I wanted to get in there and sort of see how this worked. And a weekend was great because it's just a stepping in, seeing what you can use it for. Rather than spending 6 months and then decide at the end this isn't really for me. So, yes.
That's the problem with things like EMDR. I don't know how long the training is now, but I know it's quite an extensive training.
It is.
And it's only available to certain levels of mental health complications. I'm not quite sure. I think it's slightly broadened. But what I like about IEMT is accessible to anybody. There's no prerequisites. So if you're getting into therapy, or if you're already a trainee counsellor or any kind of therapist, you can come and do that. And like I say, it's a weekend. If you don't like it, it's just a weekend. But most people, in fact, I think pretty much everybody who does it, just absolutely loves the way that it works and the results it produces. So let's talk about the weekend itself. How did you enjoy the weekend? What did you think about the results people were getting, and basically what was your take on it?
Okay, I think it was very well laid out what you did and how you explained it. And one of the benefits to me was also to meet like-minded people, and also the chance to try it out there in a safe environment and try it out on each other. As well. So that to me was really useful to do that, and to hear your examples of where and how it could be used specifically. So it's a very no-nonsense approach, which I really liked as well. So, and then to be able to take that away and go further with it, and knowing that I could speak to other people about it then as well. So it wasn't just standalone course, that's it. Now you can put the sort of the folder on the shelf and forget about it. and where it can gather dust, I knew there was other places from there I could take it, which is also really useful.
And what did you think about the actual application during the weekend when you were using it and having it done on yourself? What did you actually think about the actual technique and the techniques itself and how it worked?
Yeah, I thought it was very clear and very concise. And I think one of the things maybe myself and other people thought was, wow, this is a lot easier, a lot more simple than you were sort of expecting.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of its great strengths as well. That
and the results which they get as well, or what it gets, is just amazing. So you actually went out and you used it on a few people, didn't you?
Yes.
So tell me about how did it go working with people using the IEMT?
Okay, I think the thing that really I liked is that people at the end turned around and went, A, how did you do that? And B, wow, that's quite amazing. And that's lovely to hear after some really short sessions.
Yes.
I must say. And it was almost like a look of disbelief on people's faces.
Yeah.
I found it a really good, useful tool to use.
And the results, what kind of work was it you were doing with the people, and how did it?
But just to give an example, a couple of examples, I used it with a lady that had travel anxiety, hadn't decided she could not go on a plane for about 10 years. And I used a variety of tools because I needed to pinpoint with her particularly what had set it off. And I had to do a little bit of digging in there to find that. Once we found that memory, and let's say it did take a little while. It wasn't like the first time I stepped on a plane. It was before then.
Yeah.
Without going into too many details.
Yes, of course.
So we got that and we worked on that memory. And we reduced it down and reduced it down. Over a couple of sessions, that's all it took. I did use some CBT, and I also used, sending her off to do homework, to understand about turbulence in planes, etc. Listening to videos of pilots, that sort of stuff as well. And she actually texted me, sat on the plane, and said, "I can't believe it. I'm sitting here reading a book, and I'm enjoying the flight." And then it was lovely from a perspective. The fact that when she'd got back 2 weeks later, she sent me a huge bunch of flowers and said, "I can't believe, not only did I go there, I came back and I'm booking another holiday."
Wow.
So that's lovely to hear that sort of.
Wow. Well, that's amazing.
And she'd gone and tried to get help before, and she'd gone on one of these flights up, where they take you round for a very short flight. She tried everything. So that was lovely to hear.
Wow.
Also worked with somebody who had OCD, specifically to do with fear of needles. So again, that was interesting to go right back again, pinpoint memories. The other thing I used it for, which you may find strange, I don't know, and may not be what you would use it for, so please edit this, was we took scenarios and situations that she was concerned could happen.
Yeah,
like somebody throwing in, I know it sounds bizarre if you don't have this, but somebody walking past a house, leaving the windows open, and somebody throwing a used syringe in.
Yeah.
So we went through some of the different scenarios as well, and took those right down. So we removed, the fear from that.
What IEMT can really do is basically do the anticipatory events. So if she's imagining something can happen, you then get that feeling of what that's like. And then you then regress that to the first time she can remember feeling that way.
Yeah.
And that's the memory which you then work on with the IEMT. You can't see my hand. So no, absolutely. So you work on what's been presented. So people either know what the problem is or they don't a lot of the time. So, and if they have like things coming up, so if they have like interviews, driving tests, dates, exam, anything, you take the feeling in that memory and then you reverse it back and you go back and you go back to the imprint. And that's what IEMT does. You go back to the imprint, you move the eyes, and so the imprint is lost. In fact, from your opinion, now I've done a lot of research in this. Now in IEMT, we never say how it works because we don't know at the moment. Research is hopefully going to be carried out into it. Hopefully, I need to speak to the association, but hopefully there's going to be a lot more research into it. Now, I think the reprocessing, and this is just my thought, I think it's something to do with the amygdala and the hippocampus and the limbic system, where basically the memories have had a lot of information stored, but it hasn't been time-coded properly by the hippocampus, and it hasn't been sorted properly. It's kind of got a bit stuck. And so I try and describe it, it's almost like having an open window on your computer. So it's minimized, but it's still there, and it can be triggered very easily. So I believe what IEMT does, and it'd be interesting to get your opinion on it, is that when you focus on the memory, and then when you actually move the eyes, it basically reactivates or reprocesses the memory through the amygdala and the hippocampus to basically reassess the fear from where you are now and basically put the correct time code and timestamp so it goes into your past, so it's properly closed, put in the right place, and the fear's been removed. Do you think I'm anywhere close?
Yeah, again, as you said, there needs to be a lot more research into this. I mean, have the same thoughts about when people dream, that they need to reprocess, get rid of, stuff during the day. I mean, I explain it to people, like you did, is that, you're laying down memories, but at the same time you're laying those down with emotions, and what you're trying to do is to remove the emotions from those memories or make them a lot less traumatic. And that seems to, to most people, that seems to be a good way of describing it. But yes, I think you're right. There's definitely that connection, and it's exploring and unpicking that connection. And you're only going to be able to do that by a lot more research.
I completely agree. So I generally find this, what I don't like is the kind of feel the fear and do it anyway approach to things. So say with your lady, I think it was a lady who was on the plane. Now, if you hyped her up and tried to get her really super confident and feeling, there's now a lot of adrenaline in the system.
Yes.
A lot of emotion in the system. Now, the thing is, if it goes well, fair enough, but chances are it's not going to. And if it goes wrong, because there's so much emotion, I think she's much more likely to lay down a new, very traumatic memory, and she may never go on a plane ever again.
And
so with IEMT, it's not about building confidence. It's about minimizing the fear, the emotion around it.
I mean, the other thing I also said, because she was, when we first started, one of the things she said to me is, well, I looked at the videos you sent me to watch of sitting in a cockpit, and she said, and I looked at all of the pilots' faces to see if they were anxious, and I went, whoa, stop there. When you get on a train, do you go and look at the driver to see, what he's doing? No, you don't. So I think it's looking at, and I also said to her, don't expect to feel 100% calm. You're not going to. And if you have that little bit of anxiety, that's fine. Because people go into that all or nothing mode.
Yes, absolutely.
And they think they've failed if they don't get to nothing. And that's not strictly true.
I completely agree. Basically, people are testing for evidence of the problem rather than for change. And this is one of the patterns that we teach in the Practitioner. So, for example, I used to do a lot of stop smoking work about 10, 15 years ago. I don't really do that anymore. And people would go from 40 a day to 0, and after 2 years they'd smoke one, and then they'd call me up and complain. Although you know what I mean? Although you've reduced it by 99.999%, they're looking for that one bit of evidence. And the thing is, I think that people are looking for evidence of what remains is because they are not used to therapy working.
Yes.
And so with IEMT is such a visceral experience of change. So this is why IEMT I don't think is suitable for like bereavement and, a sort of a very, when I say strong anxiety, people who are in a state of, very strong anxiety, I think it's for people who are ready to change
Yeah.
But it's not care or support, and that's really important. It's not counselling, although I think it can be used within counselling. From your sort of background, obviously, with healthcare, how do you think that this could be incorporated into sort of healthcare? Do you think therapists should learn this? What's sort of your opinion with this kind of therapy going forward?
Yeah, I think, it's starting to more so people are understanding that mental health and physical health are connected. No surprises there. But I think to some professionals, it's always seen as very separate.
Yeah.
I think, it can be used very much, because when you're dealing with people maybe with chronic illnesses, etc., we're talking about all the way through, it's about loss and adjustment.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think using this technique can help with that. Again, it's the emotional imprints that you've got going on about certain times in people's lives. So again, maybe a bit of unpicking, but it also, because as you said, it's a tool to be used to maybe start a journey off with somebody, and then giving them the coping abilities and skills as well to go with that.
Absolutely.
And I know we've talked about not confidence, but actually maybe starting this off gives somebody that confidence to move forward as well.
Well, I always try to explain to people that when you have an emotional change and a physical change, that's when you get the best overall results. So, for example, with your lady who's getting onto the plane, you gave her the emotional change, but you also gave her some training and some stuff to do. And she did something physical. She got on the plane, and now she's had an overall change.
Yes.
So some people just need treatment for an emotional problem, such as depression. They don't necessarily want to change what they're doing. They just want treatment for what they're doing. I don't think IEMT is necessarily designed for that. It's designed for people who want to change what they're doing, change their behaviour.
Yes.
And this is why it works brilliant with coaching. So if you're a coach, say that, if you're any kind of coach, it could be a sports coach, it could be a skills coach. When you're coming up against these problems, you can use IEMT to smooth that journey. Rather than getting people hyped up, you can actually just lower the emotions down, and so you can do the physical thing, and therefore you get the best overall change. That's how I believe IEMT is the most effective anyway.
Yes. You've got to think of it as a practical help rather than people going along, as you said, being totally hyped up. It's not the way you should live your life.
No.
It doesn't help in the long run.
And
it's exhausting as well for most people. So
I do really get quite worried about a lot of these self-development type of approaches and courses where you're walking over hot coals, where you're shouting and, empowerment and all this kind of stuff. I think that how I sort of think about it is, if you have a problem, putting big happy feelings on it, you're creating a time bomb, and you're creating a very sort of polar way, basically a polar way of living. But you're going to go down. The further you go down, the higher you have to go. And I find the drops and the peaks and troughs get sort of further and further apart, and it creates a very unstable way of living. IEMT is now sort of coming back to a normal level of unhappiness. My flatmate says, because he's stuck. A normal level of unhappiness, rather than being. I think that the more, when I say the more American approach, is the more woo-woo sensational.
Yeah.
I think they can make you feel great, but they don't necessarily cause any change, and then can set you up for much bigger problems in the future.
Yeah. And I think you also end up needing a bigger fix of it each time to try.
It gets higher and higher. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's a lot of people out there who are ready and waiting to sell that to you.
Definitely, and I've seen it, and I've also seen the types of personalities that get attracted to that, and it turns into a vicious circle, as you just said.
It does. Of course, with IEMT, if you have a problem, it kind of goes smooth the problem rather than just putting happy feelings onto it. And what I really like about IEMT is that because you don't talk, there's not much content.
Yeah.
More the structure and going back to the imprints and talking about the structure of the memory as opposed to what happened in the memory. So
Yes.
it allows people, I find, 'cause I work with a lot of guys who have been through a lot of sexual abuse and a lot of bullying, and they don't want to talk about the problem and be re-traumatized or embarrassed, which is great because you don't need to talk about it to actually create a lot of change work as well.
Yes, and I think people can also then disassociate from the problem slightly as well. It's a step of disassociating from it, but working on it at the same time. So, yeah.
Somebody could come to you and go, I want to work on the issue, and that's actually enough information to actually get going and starting to unravel everything.
Yeah.
Talk about what that specific issue is. Cool. Well, I want to thank you very much for your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I think that IEMT and the NDO and a lot of the eye movement processes have got a real future. Hopefully, I'd love to see IEMT being used more by doctors, clinicians, and hopefully getting into like the NHS and hopefully actually into the school system to some degree. I think would be fantastic.
Yeah.
How to do it in that way. Do you have any final things to say? Any closing words at all?
No, I think what you're saying is right. I mean, they've trained doctors a lot and health professionals in motivational interviewing. So I know they're very different things, but it would be really useful to maybe start thinking about, as you said, giving health professionals these skills to be used, because you said they're quick and they produce results, and at a time when the health system is quite pressured, anything that can help that produces quick results is also a good thing. So.
Christine, I want to thank you very much for your time, and I will see you at a refresher in the future. Okay.
All right. Thanks so much. All right then. Okay. Bye.